Here's precipitation of 20%, humidity 62%, and the wind is moving at a speed of 13 kilometers per hour. This is the Morning Cafe. How hot is the coffee where you are?
And speaking of matters hot, the Africa Climate Summit is around the corner. This particular morning, we talk about matters climate change and the money in it, the whole financing climate change. Stick around for that conversation from 8 a.m.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Cafe. I trust you're having a fantastic one. We do have a great show lined up for you, so do stick around for that, and of course keep on interacting with us. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Limuki_F, at Fred Indimuli, at Nyaringita _ on Twitter, TV47 News on Twitter, TV47 Kenya on Facebook, and we'll sample some of your feedback as we move on.
Well, my name is Fred Indimuli. Good morning.
And I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyaringita.
To the top story now. Almost 3/4 of Kenyans believe that the country is heading in the wrong direction, according to a new poll by Infotrack. Only 15% of Kenyans expressed optimism that the country is heading in the right direction. Now, in Nyanza, Western and Coast regions, that's where we have the highest levels of strong feelings that the country is headed in the wrong track, with 82%, 79% and 76% of their populations respectively holding this belief. On the other hand, only 22% in Central, 21% in Northeastern and 19% in Rift Valley regions expressed this belief. Now, this Infotrack survey was conducted between July 3rd and 8th, and it involved 2,400 respondents from across the country using computer-assisted telephone interviews. Now, among the main reasons why people feel the country is moving in the wrong direction is the high cost of living, which a substantial 93% of respondents cited as a major concern. In addition, 23% of respondents attributed the problem to unemployment and 19% to poor governance. Now, that is our top story this morning. We'll continue updating and discussing that as we move along. Do stand by for the editorial comment much later, even as we look at the headlines this morning. But first, before that, let's get today's diary.
Well, on today's diary, we do have the Azimio Suspense Wednesday demonstrations, that is citing that they will instead use the day for vigil and mourn the lost lives in the protest. Away from that, Baby Sagini finally gets justice as Alex Minor, the main suspect, that is the cousin of sentenced to 40 years behind bars, also handed Baby Sagini's auntie Pacifica Nyakerario 10 years and the grandmother 5 years, respectively. In other news, Azimio leaders have been set free, including the blogger Paul Njoroge and also Mathare Member of Parliament, among others, and former Mungiki leader Maina Njenga. And away from that, finally, former President Uhuru Kenyatta speaks exclusively to a number of editors yesterday, of course, concerning the whole saga of the firearms and his sons owning them and the drama that occurred over the weekend, also citing that he's not been receiving his retirement benefits and distancing himself from the funding of the Azimio protest. And also today we follow up on the National Assembly Committee on Education to meet Cabinet Secretary for Interior Kithure Kindiki concerning the security of teachers in the ASAL areas of the country. Away from that, the Senate Health Committee is to meet with the acting CEO of KEMSA to probe on the irregularities in procurement of medical equipment in KEMSA. That is what we have on the diary. Of course, we keep on updating you as we move on.
Yes, and it's now time to take a look at the dailies this morning, and I'll just start with a quick one with the Daily Nation. Of course, most of the dailies in Kenya today beaming the photo of the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. This follows that interview yesterday that he had with a number of senior editors. And on the Daily Nation, the big headline reads, Uhuru, my problem with Ruto. In a wide-ranging interview, the former president reveals the past struggle that led to his parting of ways with the man who would later succeed him, how the ghosts of The Hague slowed him down, why he feels dishonored by the current regime, and why, despite all the drama, he still considers Ruto his president. And the Daily Nation has actually given enough space to that story, pages 2, 3, 4, and 5.
A number of acres in it,
oh, yes.
as you like to say. I am a supporter of the Azimio coalition. I campaigned for Raila Odinga in the last general election. Unless something major happens, I support that coalition. Those are not my words. Those are the words of former President Uhuru Kenyatta. This by the way looks like a very interesting read, all the way extensive from page 2, 3, 4, and 5. But away from matters, former President Uhuru Kenyatta still on the Daily Nation, on the left side, that also forms our top story, a big story this morning. Infotrak survey, majority feel country is on the wrong track. The poll shows so a majority of Kenyans believe that the country is moving in the wrong direction, with only 15% expressing optimism that it is on the right track. According to the latest Infotrak survey, Nyanza, Western and Coast regions exhibit lower levels of confidence in the country's direction, while more than half of the population in Central, Northeastern and Rift Valley believe the country is headed in the right direction. That story is extensive on page 7. On the top page of the Daily Nation, Mukumu Girls sacks whistleblower cook, and matters business. Kenya loses millions in crypto scams, and also it is up to 40 years in jail for baby Sagini attackers. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation.
I think that story on the crypto scams on page 12 of the Daily Nation, I'll definitely have to look for that one. If Kenya is losing anything to crypto.
Oh, you're into...
I have interests there. I do not have a lot of it, but well, it's something to look at.
Okay.
Yes.
Flo, the Standard?
On the Standard, still former president makes headlines. Power is temporary, Uhuru tells Ruto. In a candid interview, former president says he wonders why the current administration is going after him and his family in spite of handing over power in peace and retiring. He says government should focus on working for the people. And down there, Kenyans pay price of protest with court dates, of course, on the top page of the Standard. We see the blogger Pauline Njoroge there. We see also Maina Njenga and Antonio Luoch, the Madare Member of Parliament, among other people who were arrested following the protest that happened last week. And some good news for Kenyans, it's that the mandamano slated for tomorrow have been temporarily halted, as the Azimio side says it's a day they'll use to mourn the lost lives during the protest. But we're yet to see how that turns out. And it's 55 years for Kino gouged out Bibi Sagini's eyes. Of course, finally, Bibi Sagini gets justice after months. Since it's been 7 months since December last year. And in terms of business, food prices start to drop as harvesting begin. Quite good news there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I think until you really see and you walk in and you see, oh, I used to buy a packet of unga this much, and now it is this much, then you'll be like, Fuchs.
Yes.
Right now, just on paper, nah, not yet for me.
Either way, but you see, farmers have actually been hard at work. Every year, every planting cycle, people go out, plant not just maize, potatoes, onions, vegetables. All these things are actually just now beginning to flourish in the farms, and we'll be heading to harvest time. Even if the price of maize or unga does not go down immediately, at least you'll notice that probably a sack of potatoes is now a bit more affordable. So potato fries that you like so much. That could actually be.
Okay, maybe not. You don't really have the solid food before you.
Yeah, even bananas.
No, you're talking.
That is personal.
Arrowroots, sweet potatoes, those ones start going down, and believe you me, it changes a lot for many households.
Yeah. Because in as much as you don't see that fall of prices in the supermarket, people are able to feed themselves. So you don't even realize unga has come down from 200 to maybe 100 in my future dreams. And if you are able to get food from your farm and feed yourself, I think that will no longer be an issue. And for sure, if you walk around, you can see very flourishing farms, even around Nairobi.
It looks very green and very nice if you drive around.
Actually, before you even digress, I remember some months ago, Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture, Thika Lenturi, hinting that we will see food prices and more harvesting around this time, July, August. So maybe.
Because we always peg the price of food on the price of unga. Yet sometimes there's a lot that goes around the production of maize to unga, the milling process, the market prices, what time the harvest came, and all these things, international forces as well. So it may not necessarily mean that we peg maize to other foods, but hey, as you said, it's just on paper. We'll wait and see. A quick look at the People Daily, a similar headline. Uhuru, my advice to Ruto from yesterday's interview. Former president denies claims family holds cache of weapons, spells out trouble with his successor, Azimio demonstrations, and the frustrations and joys of retirement in this interview. The former head of state says that though he did not support President Ruto in the last election, he has no qualms rendering him any help if called upon. And the quote here, my advice to Ruto is that power is fleeting and temporary. When you have it, act in the best interest of the country and not those around you. I did my best when I was in power and handed over to you. Also on the front page of the People Daily, that Baby Sagini story, court hands Baby Sagini trio 55 years prison term. This is a story we've been following for months. And it's a very sad story. And yesterday, finally, the suspects, or rather the convicts, were sentenced. The judges found the suspects guilty of torture by gouging out the youngsters' eyes. And
speaking of matters sad news, on the Business Daily, it is quite some sad state of affairs, and mostly if you live in County 047, Nairobi County. Kidero Sonko regimes hit, get this, 18 billion Kenyan shillings on source tax revenues. That is according to the auditor. And just to have a brief on Business Daily, on the front page, Business Daily. So City Hall did not declare a staggering 18.46 billion shillings in on-source revenue. This in the 3 financial years between 2016 and 2019. A Senate Watchdog Committee had yesterday opening the lead on how billions of shillings collected in Kenya's capital may have ended in private hands. That's on the Business Daily. Something else here on matters money. State nets 3.2 trillion Kenyan shillings in total revenues in the year to June 30th, 2023. Ordinary tax revenue below target by 101.4 billion Kenyan shillings.
Okay. And probably we'll look at another paper. Yesterday we didn't get a chance to take a look at the East African and probably even the other papers from across the region. And once we get them, I will definitely come back with that. Do you have any? Yes, I have.
Yeah, we do have the Citizen as well as Taifa Leo. And well, before moving to East Africa, there's a Star there. And Taifa Leo headlines today is Inchi Enda Mrama. This is concerning the utafiti wa Infotrack, of course, saying that 72% of Kenyans wamekata tamaa kuhusu maisha mazuri. And still on the headline on Taifa Leo, Uhuru, they are saying sifadhili maandamano, rais wa zamani akana madai ya kudhamini Azimio huku akiwatetea wanawe. Na of course story on Bibi Sagini still headlining on Taifa Leo. Waliong'oa Sagini macho kusota jela kwa jumla ya miaka 55.
So really needs it.
Almost said 80.
I almost got me. And kamata za polisi bado zaendelea. Majangili wahamia milimani kuhepa jeshi. That is on Taifa Leo's front page. Kenyans, 72% of Kenyans do believe that we are not headed in the right direction.
That's a big figure, if you ask me.
Yes.
That's a huge figure. It is our top story today. Let's take a look at the headlines across the border. In Uganda, the Daily Monitor. 3,000 teachers fail to graduate. And this is the big headline in Uganda today. 3,000 teachers fail to graduate, and we'll come back to take a look at the Star probably. Let me look for a paper in Tanzania.
Is it?
If anyone can get, yes,
Habari Leo.
Mwananchi. Uhaba wa dola wagusa mafuta. Yes, our neighbors in Tanzania have their own fuel crisis, their own version of the fuel crisis. Waagizaji wapaza sauti wakitaka serikali ingilie kati kunusuru. Waziri Makamba asema changamoto inajulikana na inatafutiwa suluhisho la haraka, hakikisha kuna upungufu wa mafuta. Uhaba wa dola wagusa mafuta. Just the other day, President Suluhu Hassan was saying how the situation in Tanzania is relatively better than that in Kenya.
Less than a week.
Just before that, the Citizen, still in Uganda, fuel stocks are plenty, but farms issue dollar plea.
Yeah.
There's an issue with the dollar, and I think it's a general concern across the board.
Yes.
But then back home, still on the Star now, Uhuru donates armed guards to Mamangina. There you have it. Anglican clergy tells Ruto to leave Kenyatta family alone, deal with the pressing issues. That story is extensive from page 4 to 5. So this is, really family troubles here that we're seeing. Former First Lady's security detail of 50 years withdrawn last week. You have it by Nanjenga, 2 others charged, remanded until today. Interesting times below there. This is a story that we talked about yesterday, and we're saying how we should really be focusing on it each and every single day. What is happening in Kilifi, in Shakahola. Prophet of War, Bishop Wanjiru rejects bid to ban broadcast of miracles. That is on Shakahola Probe. That story is on page 8. And then man on death row for killing grandpa of a land to serve 30 years instead. Interesting times we live in. On the top page, Riley is okay and going about his activities as usual, says Ida. Ida or Ida, depends on your teacher of English. That is on the front page of the Star.
Oh, finally, I've come across the front page of the East African. I remember this is a weekly edition, and it talks about Museveni looks to West Africa for new milk market, with Kenya blocking dairy exports to Kenyatta farm, an Algeria dealer in limbo. Ugandan leader now woos Senegal as prices drop 73%. Farmers cry foul. Remember, now the issues, our politics here in Kenya seems to be affecting our neighbors as well. The issue, because I think Brookside Dairy is also one of the biggest dealers in milk, even in Uganda. I think a week or 2 ago, they expressed an intention to actually fire up to 50% of its staff in Uganda because of decisions made in Kenya with regard to the export and importation of milk products into the country. That is affecting even the milk production and the milk processing in Uganda as well. And now Museveni has been forced to look to West Africa for a new milk market. And finally, we have the hard copies of the dailies this morning. You may have noticed us struggling to look at some screens.
Most definitely. I believe we can now delve deep into Daily Nation. We put it aside.
And wow, just looking at how they've treated this Uhuru Speaks, it's actually a special report on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the Daily Nation this morning. Big news.
Big news in there. Right. So matters, you said you were really interested in cryptocurrency. because, we have delved deep into some of the nitty-gritties and, dailies in the Daily Nation from the first page. Let's cross over to page 12 of the Daily Nation. So, legal lacuna. There are several loopholes in laws governing ownership, management, and disposal of such assets. Kenya losing millions legally to cryptocurrency fraudsters. Kenya is yet to enact any laws governing use or trade in cryptocurrency, leaving the unregulated product in a legal grey area that fraudsters and money launderers are now exploiting. That's really
it is
on
unfortunate
page 12.
when it comes to issues to do with online trading and cryptocurrency. But hey, these are the days we live in.
That's where you always
these
hear
are the
wash,
days of our lives.
Quick money era.
Of course, the other big story that I think we've missed, and I think it was overtaken by the fact that the retired president gave an interview, is the fact that Azimio, who had previously called for demonstrations this week on Wednesday, that's tomorrow, issued a statement saying they will approach the day differently and urging their supporters to hold solidarity parades, vigils tomorrow in honor or in memory of those who died in the protests, meaning that we will not see the usual maandamano that we've been seeing previously. Interesting, a number of those leaders, Azimio leaders who were arrested in relation to the demonstrations last week were also in court yesterday and released on bail terms across the country in Kilifi, Mombasa and Nairobi. All of them are out now and interesting.
Interesting, and of course, if we're not reading too much into the details, one day to the maandamano, we see leaders being set free. We see the former president saying, yes, I do acknowledge that President Ruto is the head of state right now, and we can maybe talk. It gives so many hints towards the top of this.
Some softening of the headlines.
Yes.
Well, they say nothing in politics happens by coincidence.
Exactly.
Everything is usual. If at all it is happening, it was meant to happen.
Absolutely.
So is that what Limuki is trying to say?
I'll tell you that behind the tent, tukimaliza.
You may attend.
But then if you ask me, as the Mio leaders call for demos, you'd see most areas, rather prone areas, Mathare, maybe even in Kibra, people come out and demonstrate. But then now that they call for the vigils tomorrow, are we going to see people actually coming out with these white candles, how will the picture look like tomorrow? I'm just hoping for the best tomorrow because again, this is an emotional event, if we are to say, because it's people going to literally to mourn their loved ones whom they've lost to this maandamano, and we are human beings and we have emotions, so you may never know what may come out of that, but we can only hope it will just be as peaceful as possible, even as we try to get out of this all maandamano fiasco that has been happening, because this is an instance that has happened before, even after the 2007-2008 general election and post-election violence. We saw the same thing happen, the vigils, and I can assure you not very good things happened during that, but let's hope. The country, as people are more enlightened right now, and we only hope this also brings an end to all these loss of lives during protests, because there's no essence of holding this protest. We lose lives and then we are back at it to mourn. I think it it's a little bit ironical. I don't know.
It's the purpose.
Yes.
There's a lot we can discuss about all these things, but there's one story that I want us to look at internationally, and that's the change of the logo on Twitter. Twitter, remember yesterday we talked about the intention in the morning, and now Twitter has officially changed its brand and logo from its famous blue bird to a big black X. The new, it's white and partly black. The new X on a black background has replaced the blue bird on the desktop version of the social network. So you may not necessarily see it on your mobile app just yet, but it's coming. If you're accessing Twitter on a desktop or your laptop, you'll definitely notice that the blue bird is already gone.
So basically you're going back to your X. If you,
That's a good one.
What you did there.
time is really flying, and I think we really should get into
Cartoon,
what we love to do here as we wrap up before 6:30 hits. On the Daily Nation is on page, this is page 15, and on the Standard is in page 16. You can, walk us through as you watch us, where you're watching us this particular morning. So let me start with right here at home on the Daily Nation, that is on page 15. Interesting. Okay, the only caricature that resembles, okay, what's his name again? The former radio presenter.
Jealous.
Yes, Jelango. Yeah. And other.
I don't know how you could tell that was him, because I clearly cannot tell who.
Oh, you can't?
I can only say these are rebel ODM MPs.
It's the bald head.
Yes.
About to go to the disciplinary hearings.
And, bathing in yellow liquid substance.
Actually, what they're doing is washing off the yellow from them.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Then
Then
it be orange.
It's
Okay.
the yellow. It's a UDA yellow that they're washing from them, so that they go into the ODM disciplinary just before you go in.
Right.
Yes.
Then there's someone inside that door saying next. So, okay. And then on the Standard, now across the borders, a fighter jet that has Russia. Then there's that whole board saying we're going to Ukraine, and then pickup for Wagner. So the Russia, says you are supposed to aim ahead of you idiot. Okay. So if you just to give you a rather a context of this. Some weeks ago, we did see Wagner. Wagner is basically a paramilitary group that is in a Russian, was really helping the Russian forces fight in Ukraine. And they had, they decided that, we are going to take, inside Russia, take control of Russia. So basically that's the whole context of it. Right now, the Wagner leader, forgotten his name, quite a mouthful one.
Yevgeny
Yeah.
Prigozhin.
Yes.
Name.
He was sent out of Russia. Which one makes it for today, Fred?
Well, I know the Russian story is a good one, but has nothing to do with Kenya, really. So I'd go with the one on the Daily Nation.
Okay.
This ODM MP is struggling, a rebel ODM MP is struggling to wash off the UDA yellow before they attend ODM disciplinary hearings. And it's a very interesting one.
Flora?
I think for me, it's also cleaning off the yellow fever on Daily Nation. Yeah.
Yellow fever, I love that. Okay, the fact that you even, the caricature, he looks like he's smiling. It's like, you guys don't know what I have.
I'd really be interested to know who these two women
Well,
at this end are.
I still insist I have no idea who these people are. I'm just looking at the caricature.
Right.
Anyway, after the break, we'll be hosting Honorable Kiruga Thuku, MCA Chingawad, Wanja Maina, National Chairperson, Jubilee Party, People Living with Disabilities League, and Mesha Kodede, Chairperson of the VIO Society of Kenya. That's the volunteer organizations, volunteer involving organizations, Society of Kenya. So do stand by for that as we look at the big stories, including that interview by retired President Uhuru Kenyatta that he made yesterday, and which has made its way to all the major headlines this morning. Good morning.
also a scapegoat to them.
And we're back. You're watching Morning Cafe at TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. And just before we get into this interview, later on this show, we'll be having an interview on climate financing, which generally refers to contributing funds for activities aimed at mitigating impacts of climate change. Stanley Nyaringita will be conducting that later on. But first, we want to look at today's politics. And we are very privileged this morning to have in studio, let me start with the lady, Wanja Maina, National Chairperson, Jubilee Party, PWD's League. Karibu sana, Wanja.
Asante sana, Fred.
On my immediate right, we do have Honorable Kiruga Thuku, MCA Shinga Ward.
Thank you very much, sir.
And Mesha Kodede, Chairperson, Volunteer Involving Organization, Society of Kenya. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Lady and gentlemen, very interesting discussions this morning. Of course, you can see what is headlining on the dailies. All the main daily papers are featuring that interview with the retired president, Uhuru Kenyatta. He said quite a lot of things, and the Daily Nation has actually dedicated acres and acres of pages to this story. That's page 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But before we come to that, what the retired president is saying, our top story this morning has to do with that InfoTrack poll that was released yesterday. The results were released yesterday. And majority of Kenyans feel the country is on the wrong track. Yes? A majority of Kenyans, that story is also on page 7 of the Daily Nation. Most Kenyans feel country on wrong track. High cost of living, unemployment, and poor governance was cited by respondents as main reasons for feeling the country is headed in the wrong direction. Only 15% believe the country is heading in the right direction. 75% of Kenyans blame the president for Kenya's poor performance. Now, a lot has been said about polls, and I know that is the first thing we'll go. We'll attack the pollsters. But once in a while, there's some truths that can come out of these polls. I know Honorable Thuku wants to... Okay, first. You have the first go.
Thank you. You know, Fred, I wanted to remind all of us seated here, and I want to start by greeting our viewers, and thank you very much for the invitation. I want to remind all of us seated here. Number one, I'm sure nobody among us here was polled in that poll. Number two, these are the same pollsters who had told us Raila Odinga has 53%, William Ruto has 39%. So they are used to faking these figures. The truth of the matter is we have challenges as a country. But, you know, we cannot be that pessimistic. It's not all about doom and gloom. Remember, when the Kenyan government took over, we had a severe drought in this country. Now, we prayed God, God has helped us, it has rained. In fact, we are about to have a bumper harvest of maize, right? They are not telling you that. But the truth is, but you know, they may not know because they were concentrating their efforts on those who are wearing sufurias on their heads. But the Kenya Kwanza government requested our people, kindly, let's go back to our farms. And to the credit of our people, they went back to their farms. Okay. Now we are about to have a bumper harvest. And that is the best way, my brother, friend, to bring down the cost of living. The cost of living cannot be brought down by destroying our country.
Let's also be fair to the pollsters. They've given their mechanism of conducting the poll. They said they polled 2,400 people using phone interviews across all the 47 counties, and they've even given what percentages said what in what counties. Do you also, I'll come back to you, do you, Anja, also have the same approach, dismissing the polls altogether?
I would say that personally, if nothing else, it is also good to believe in science, to believe in mathematics, to believe in absolute numbers. And therefore, just by looking at the InfoTrack and what they have said, whereby they said that 7 in 10 Kenyans believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction. That is 70%. They also said that 73% of Kenyans want the finance bill repealed, amongst those issues that you have put out so well about unemployment and so on. Even if we want to dismiss the good people at InfoTrack, let us also take ourselves back a few steps. Not too long time ago, when the finance bill was almost being voted in Bunge, there was a group of pollsters who called themselves Center for Fiscal Affairs. They said that 90% of Kenyans do not agree with the finance bill, and most of them took issue with the issue of fuel. And therefore, to the people in leadership, leaders are there because they have delegated power from the wananchi. The wananchi that are represented by the leaders in elective positions are saying clearly that they believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction. Dismissing the pollsters, it is the same attitude that they have continued to enhance by dismissing the voice of Kenyans when they are crying, by dismissing the issue of the cost of living, by mocking people who are carrying sufuria instead of understanding the symbolism of the sufuria, which is anger. So mine is just to say that if you are leading people like the way we have the government that my good friend Kiruga is defending here, please don't look like you are at war with the people you are leading. You can't dismiss Infotrack, you can't dismiss these others read by Ireri, you can't dismiss the Center for Fiscal Affairs, where you see that over 70% of Kenyans believe that the country is headed to the wrong direction.
Let's get to hear what Meshack Odede has to say about this, because yes, definitely there's a place for science. Even the current government would have used for a survey, probably to just gauge its own performance or to find other details or data for its own consumption. So what would you say about this latest poll by Infotrack?
Thank you, Fred. Number one, I have to say that I respect research because I have worked for research firms before. Though that was on the health sector and more scientific than anything else I've seen. And I think research is really, really a credible process. In terms of polls and those who do polls on elections and things like what we have seen reported by Infotrack, I haven't worked for them, but I still respect that they have part of that scientific nature in research. So I would not be very quick to dismiss any research without understanding a lot of details on how they conducted their polls and all that. But that is not the big deal. My main issue is, do African countries respect research enough? Because we see research just as something there in the African continent, not just on polls, but even other research that we do in Africa. It's either they're done by firms from elsewhere, and those reports sometimes are given to us. Our parliamentarians, I don't think if a good number of them consider research as a tool to improve the situation or the way things are. I think we believe more on what we think as parliamentarians or as the government of the day than what research tells us. So on the Infotrack, if you want to see whether that research makes sense or their report makes sense or not, like my sister here have mentioned a bit of it. When the committee on budget were sitting and Kenyans were bringing their views around this finance bill, we both know on this table how those views were because they were officially publicized and the media houses were there. We know 90% or more had issues with the finance bill. So does the research or the Infotrack report say it's opposite? No. So that gives a bit of credence, not fully, but a bit of credence to what part of this research says. Then finally, you realize when the research says that 70% of Kenyans feel that the country is headed the wrong direction, it shows something around either you dismiss the research on the basis that the polls, according to you, were manipulated, blah, blah, because we also must accept some of these polls are manipulated by politicians themselves. And sometimes they are manipulated for different agendas, maybe what the particular politician need to get out there. But the way they conduct this survey is simply to get your number and call you to ask. They do not ask scientific question to the person they are interviewing. Mm-hmm. They are simply asking you, Fred, in your opinion right now as you see things, what direction do you think the country has taken? Is it a good direction or bad direction? They will not want to know so much details with evidence from you and everything like that. But what does that tell us, Fred? That shows that probably the communication of Kenya Kwanza government has failed. Mm-hmm. Because if they fully believe 100% that the country is headed the right direction, then why do Kenyans, where they are, simply say, to me, the country is going a wrong direction? Mm-hmm. It means they have not communicated those details to Kenyans to be able to understand and know this is what my government is doing right now. Mm-hmm. And so when I am called from nowhere and somebody says, I am Fred Indimuli, I'm calling you from this farm, what do you think is the direction this country has taken, politically and otherwise? Then they would be able to know that I think it has taken the. So I think the Kenya Kwanza government needs to go back to their communication.
Okay, Honorable Kirugethuku, of course, there's a place where data comes in, even for any government that wants to gauge its performance. And data is collected through such surveys. Therefore, yes, and true, as Meshach says, people may lie, but numbers don't. Don't you think that probably this is an opportunity for the Kenya Kwanza administration to actually take in the kind of data? It might change nothing for them, even politically it changes nothing. But just to collect this data, gauging public sentiment about the issues they're dealing with currently, which are real issues, get the public data and use that to actually work on their policies going forward.
Actually, the Kenya Kwanza government is keenly doing its own analysis on the best way to improve the livelihoods of Kenyans. Actually, like in our UDA party, we have our manifesto that is geared towards improving all the sectors in our nation. Why I take InfoTrack polls with a pinch of salt, you can even Google and go back to the past polls. In all their polls, they were showing President William Ruto losing to the opposition. So I don't know which miracle have happened, and overnight they have started or they have changed from the skewed system of doing things.
So probably it would have come from a different pollster, it would have been better?
Maybe a credible pollster. But so the issue is this. I'm accepting, and the government accepts, there are challenges affecting, our country. And one of them, like I had said before, was that when our current government came in, we had a severe drought. God has blessed our nation, rains are all over now. Even if you go to Shabas there, things are not as bad as when the government was coming in. But the greatest disservice that has been done to this nation has been done by the opposition. If we have man-made trouble in this nation, it's because of the opposition. Because look, Fred, immediately the polls were over. They came in, they said, no, the polls had been stolen. Now, they went to court. They went to Supreme Court. I think for the first time in the history of presidential contestations in this nation, all the judges were unanimous. It was not a split decision. They were unanimous. The polls were credibly won by His Excellency William Ruto and his running mate, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. Fine. They went to the streets. As my sister here is saying, I don't know if that is where they started wearing sufurias. Forgetting the mess that they were wearing sufurias for was their own creation. The praise of Unga, his friend.
If I get you right, are you saying that the sentiments captured by this pollster that you're talking about are created by Azimio?
I'm telling you this, my brother. The greatest problems we have in this nation, most of them are remnants of the bad governance that we witnessed from Jubilee.
So the problems do exist.
Then it was exacerbated by the senseless violence in the name of
I
Maandamano.
think we're in agreement, Honorable Duku, because you're saying the problems do exist.
Yes.
Therefore, this pollster, whatever they captured, could probably be actual sentiments that probably were created, as you say, by someone else.
You see, the thing is this. You know, they could be using, you know, a clever way of manipulating things, just like what the opposition have been doing. Initially, when they started the demonstrations, they said these demonstrations are to remove President William Ruto from power. But then along the way, they saw this one was not carrying favor with the citizens. So they changed. They said we are protesting because of high cost of living, which was a lie. Their real intention, the foundation of their demonstrations was to remove the president and the current government from power. So they might be saying some things which are true, but to their own advantage, but that is not their real intention.
Yet some of the issues raised here are issues that are present in the current Kenyan situation. Issues of unemployment, cost of living. Yes, even Kenya Kwanza administration agrees that there's an issue with the cost of living, and they say that's why they're working hard to reverse that trend. We cannot dismiss the kind of sentiments here.
Truly, assuming that we want to carry on with the attitude of being dismissive. Just myself, barely two weeks ago, there was also another research by a group of people called TIFA. In fact, I remember reading it and summarizing. And one of the things they had said is that irrespective of political affiliation, the vast majority of Kenyans unanimously agree that the cost of living is too high. That is TIFA. If 3-4 researchers are corroborating this kind of remarks, really we cannot afford to ignore the Kenyans. And the thing about Kenyans is that as the days go by, they are becoming very uncomfortable with sharing their problems with their leaders. Do you know why? Because the Kenyans say that they are not happy with the finance bill, but their leaders went to Bunge and they said, yay, all of them. We now know that it is a matter that is in front of the Chief Justice, and as it were, the Finance Act, there are conservatory orders. What am I saying, Fred? Fred, what I'm saying is that my good friend Kiruga, Kenya Kwanza administration, I can see now where we are headed. Today they have dismissed the pollsters. Yesterday he has also dismissed the opposition. They are seen, and we have seen them dismissing the media, therefore the state. Before we know it now, even journalism will be a hazard. To be a journalist will be a matter of life and death, if I were to use that phrase. We have also seen them being very contemptuous towards court orders. That the judiciary can say that finance bill is not good, but they go on to effect the fuel prices. If indeed they don't want to, you can't tell me that the media is wrong to give the Kenyans a voice, the opposition is wrong to. And you know, if you see the kind of, the Maandamano, for example, Maandamano is as legal as it comes. Maandamano is a right. It is so sacred that it can be found in Article 37. So the problem has never been Maandamano. The problem has never been people wearing sufurias. In any case, what is the safest way of demonstration if it's not wearing your own sufuria? The issue really is the discomfort with dissent, discomfort with being told the truth, failed campaign promises, and that is why they are dismissing anything that includes pollsters, media, opposition, the leader of opposition, etc.
We now take a break. When we come back, we continue with this discussion. You've taken us to the issue of Maandamano, and yes, that's also a big story this morning. The fact that Azimio coalition has decided to approach tomorrow's protests in a different way. They're now favoring holding of solidarity parades and vigils in memory of those who died during the protests. We'll be discussing that, plus the big headline on that Uhuru Kenyatta interview yesterday. Don't go away. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe, and straight to our top story today. 3/4 of Kenyans believe that the country is heading in the wrong direction. This is according to a new poll conducted by InfoTrack. Only 15% of Kenyans expressed optimism that the country is heading in the right direction. These are the numbers. Look, Nyanza, Western Coast regions have the highest levels of strong feeling that the country is on the wrong track, with 82%, 79% and 76% respectively. On the other hand, those who hold similar beliefs, only 22% in Central, 21% in Northeastern, and 19% in Rift Valley regions. Now, this is according to the InfoTrack survey that talked to 2,400 people. That's their sample between July 3rd and 8th across the country using computer-assisted telephone interviews. Now, that's our top story. We'll continue updating that, and we can now continue with our discussion. Fine, we've talked about the InfoTrack poll. We do not have to go back to that. I know there's also another interesting topic that everyone has mentioned, albeit briefly, and has to do with the protests, the Maandamano. Azimio, they've called for, they had previously called for the protests to continue tomorrow, Wednesday. Now they've decided to ask their supporters to hold solidarity parades and vigils in memory of those who died in the protests. And let's start with you, Meshach. We've seen how the protests have been conducted. We've seen the number of deaths. We've seen the kind of pain, injury. We've seen the kind of criticism that has gone towards the police force in how they've handled the protests so far. What do you make of this? Because even before we started this discussion, there was some sentiment that all these things appear to be choreographed, that the retired president gave an interview yesterday, that now Azimio, the same day, decided to change their approach to the protests.
Fred, allow me to just pick something in the previous conversation and link it to your question. There is one thing Mheshimiwa has talked about, the process of election. We went to the courts, Azimio to the courts, and the courts, all the judges unanimously agree that Honorable William Ruto won the elections of 2022. The court processes, how do they work? Fred, I've lived in this country to see one of the programs in one of our many media houses called Case Files. I have watched keenly that program and saw people who are innocent and were jailed, and some of them served long time in jail only for the case file to unravel things and then the court to rescind their decision earlier. And those were still judges who went to the Kenya School of Law, and the lawyers on those podiums were lawyers by all standards, but these people still served like they were guilty while they were not guilty. What does that say? That there are times when I can take you to court on this charge and you do not know how to defend yourself, or you miss to prove to the judge that the position you're talking about is the truth. That does not take away the fact that what you're saying is actually the truth. It is the truth, but unfortunately you cannot defend your truth to satisfy the judges that your truth is actually the truth and the only truth. Mm-hmm. So the judges will go with what has been defended best. And this is where I keep telling many of us that education minus morality only makes you an intelligent criminal, because you will go and defend yourself better than I can. That will not mean the truth shifted, you are now having the truth. It only meant that you are more intelligent in defending the lie to be seen by the judges as the truth, and that is it. So Mheshimiwa Thuku, don't be worried if the judges unanimously agreed that William Ruto Honorable won the election. It could be that you are so intelligent to defend the position which was not the truth. And today we have to live with it as case file until 2027. And maybe 2027, there will be other media houses to unravel what actually happened, and we might find a different thing. So put that aside. Your question is on Maandamano. I think like I said during the break, Fred, we need to really, really approach this thing on human rights perspective and not political angle. Political angle never gives us anything, because when you stand on the side of Raila Odinga, everything looks bad on the other side. And when you stand on the side of William Ruto, everything looks ugly on the other side. And so people, Kenyans, don't have enough time to interrogate issues. We come even closer to agreeing that, yes, there are challenges. But you realize the government still wants to push it to look like it is the opposition who have brought those challenges. And so you hear a lot of these sentiments around Jubilee in power, handshake brothers, they brought us into this. And we have said this over and over. When you're wooing a girl, and today a girl decides to be yours, you cannot keep on with this girl every other time she tells you that my hair looks bad, I think I need to visit salon. And you're like, your other boyfriend is the problem. He was never even taking you to salon when you were with him. So don't bring this now. I mean, we can't behave like that. That is not gentleman, my friend. Gentleman says, okay, I need to show you that you were in a wrong relationship earlier. This is how we do it. So Kenya Kwanza have refused to take charge of this government completely. So every time Kenyans say the cost of living is high, they equate it to election of 2022 and say this is a Raila Odinga thing. The truth is, I was alive and I bought 63 units at 1,000 shillings during the period of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And now I'm paying the same 1,000 a month and I'm given 37 units, Fred. They can't send me back to Uhuru Kenyatta. They have to sort out this. It has moved up and it has affected my budget as a Kenyan. I am paying taxes to William Ruto's regime the same way I was paying taxes to Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. I want to know where the difference is. But when I check backward, I saw President William Ruto at KICC calling David Ndii, Chirchir, the CS, and telling us these two gentlemen plus another, they were three, they have cracked this code. And now we are going to reduce the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity. But after that, it has moved up. As a Kenyan, should I not be worried? Yes, I should be worried. And if I am worrying, then the finance bill comes. And then they go to parliament. Looking at the finance bill, I am seeing more taxes coming. Then we are going before the Committee of Budget and we are telling them we are not comfortable with this and this and this. Then the Budget Committee goes to Naivasha and rubbishes all that, brings back the same thing. Then we are appealing to our parliamentarians, go and represent me well. Say no to this bill. Then they all go into that house and say, Mr. Speaker, I vote yes. What choice do I have as a Kenyan? I am coming out to wear sufuria on my head to say that I am not comfortable with things the way they are. I have tried the committee, they didn't listen to me. We have tried our representatives in the House, they didn't listen to us. Now it is upon us to come out and say we are not comfortable. This should not be equated to election of 2022 whatsoever.
Okay, and on this change of tact, before we come to Honorable Kiruga, on this change of tact, because there was an intention to hold the protest tomorrow, then suddenly they've changed that tact. And I've seen a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of people on Twitter saying that probably they're disappointed with that change in plan, probably enough Azimio supporters. What would you say to that? People
who do feel like they're disappointed have a right to feel disappointed, but maybe the information is not detailed enough. Fred, they had gone and said after the Friday maandamano, the last bit of that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, they went and announced that let's retrieve, we are coming back on Wednesday next week. But that Friday night and through the weekend, a lot of things happened because there were no maandamano officially according to Azimio, but there was still brutality going on in places like Nyalenda. And I think you are a media house, you have seen these clips going around. There were people who, they went to look at what the outcome of that maandamano was. They went to hospitals, they went to different places. People were deployed here and there to look at what happened. When they saw what happened and all that report came back, they realized it is important to stand in solidarity with people who got injured and people who died. Let us change the way we are going to approach this Wednesday to show that those people did not die in vain. They were fighting for something. So you cannot have your soldiers in the bush lying there and some others are wounded, and you are still saying, let's continue going forward, pushing forward. You need to figure out, what do you do with the injured soldiers in the battlefield? What do you do with the fallen soldiers in the battlefield? Okay. That is the reason for changing the tax. It has nothing to do with the interview that President Uhuru Kenyatta had with the media houses.
Okay, Honorable Keruge.
I want to start off where he has ended. You see, he speaks like the spokesperson for the Maandamano guys. Now, the issue is, I said before, friend, what we were witnessing is nothing. You know, Maandamano and peaceful Maandamano, as they have been trying to confuse us, is something peaceful, is something welcome. And if you remember, when these guys say they want to demonstrate, the government said, fine, go ahead, but make sure there is no destruction of property. Make sure you respect the sanctity of life. What we witnessed, friend, was nothing about peaceful demonstration. Number one, these people come with stones, and yet the Constitution is very clear. Peaceful demonstration, you are not harmed. You are coming armed with stones, you are stoning the police, you place your people there. When you are stoning the police, you redact that. But when the police, defend themselves, you spread you spread those clips all about. Then, this peaceful demonstration, you had the Minister of Transport, Honorable Mukomen, saying expressway alone, it will cost the taxpayer. People are demonstrating, Fred, telling us they want to bring the cost of living down, yet they are taking up the cost of living. They have destroyed the road to the tune of 700 million. One load. They are lighting fires all over, friend, in tarmac road. You know, when you light fire on a tarmac road, what you have done is that you've destroyed that road because there must form a pothole within a very, within a week or a few hours. You see? So, this was nothing peaceful. There was nothing peaceful about this Maandamano. And that is why the government said, enough is enough. The president was given the ceremonial sword to defend Kenyans, to protect their lives. And then the opposition was told, you can no longer demonstrate. Because what they were doing, they were going out there, they take advantage of our jobless youth, they give them money to go and actually throw stones at police and other violent acts. That's why the government said there will be no more demonstrations. And on our side, we started even demanding, friend, you cannot take your children to work in foreign countries like in the East African, assembly. You find these politicians, they have taken their children there. They come, they take children of common Kenyans. They tell them, go those stones to the police, and they be killed. You see, it's been very sad, friend.
Question about the change of tact now tomorrow, because they say now they've changed tact. There will be holding solidarity parades and vigils in memory. Because now this ones too are a form of protest to some extent. Do we expect to see police action once people gather for solidarity parades and vigils tomorrow? Do we expect?
What I'm 100% sure about, friend, there is no policeman who will attack any grouping that is peaceful. But, friend, these people have not been peaceful. And you see, this change of tact, number one, the government have outruled this violence in name of
They
demonstration.
may have outlawed the violence, but they've not outlawed assembly.
With me, what I know 100%, because this government said it will protect the rights of Kenyans to do their things peacefully. If these guys were peaceful, you would never see any interference from our government. Fred, I can assure you of that.
So if they're peaceful
then,
tomorrow,
yes,
there'll be no interference.
Yes. Then on the shade of tact, number one, they know the government means business. It will not allow that nonsense of destroying this country in the name of demonstrating. Violent demonstrations, you are lying to us, they are peaceful demonstrations. Number two, you see even the former president have disowned them. And I remember, friend, even before we went to the last polls, some of us used to honestly beseech the former president. We were praying, we were sending emissaries, please, Mr. President, if it's possible, we cannot command you, but kindly don't take sides. You are a statesman, just stay neutral. And even now, Fred, that would be my plea. The former president, he's a figurehead in this nation. Okay. He should remain, we used to ask, he should remain neutral, such that if there is any fallout between the current president and the opposition, it can be an arbiter.
We'll come to that discussion because it's also our main discussion, and so all the headlines, the position of the former president. But on the change of tact by Azimio on the demonstrations this week.
Okay, for me, if we really look at the Azimio press statement yesterday, I find it actually misleading to say that it is a change of tact. If you have followed this narrative closely, what they have said is that you are protesting in your own locality the way you know how. That's why you have seen online maandamano where the hashtag Sabasaba Maandamano Wednesday has been trending. That is a form of digital protesting. That's why you've seen women taking sufurias and banging with amiko. That is a form of protesting. So this is not necessarily a change of tact. I would describe it as just responding to the need of the time, because ideally we had not anticipated the amount of violence that should be condemned by all, especially, and there was a pattern in a place called Nyanza. Sometimes we become so politically correct not to call it as it is, but we saw photos of a place called Nyalenda, Manyata, Kodele, Sodu, and you can see that it is actually targeted, and we also know the geographical realities of this country and who are the inhabitants of that area. Yeah. But Mheshimiwa Kiroga is very good, just like his friends in Kenya Kwanza, to digress from the real issue. He is telling us that President Uhuru Kenyatta should be neutral, but our constitution bestows upon us political rights. Just as I have my rights to participate in politics, to vote, to be voted for, anybody has that right. But they have said that Uhuru Kenyatta should not take a political side. Let us not be so forgetful, not to go back to the history of this country 15 years ago. In the year 2005, we had the voting between Machungwa and Mandizi. The former president of Kenya, may his soul rest in peace, President Moi. We know too well that he was in the side that was not the side of Mwai Kibaki. Yeah. So Mwai Kibaki was in the side of the Constitution, Moi was not in the side of the Constitution. This side shows scapegoating of attacking his family, his children, his mom. He did what all of us could do, because even if you came to attack my own mother, I will deal with you in the morning.
And you've already taken us to that discussion about Uhuru, so let's proceed with that now.
But now, really, I am seeing, if for lack of a better word and for the sake of appearing modest, I would just call it bad manners. 2 weeks ago, there was protests called Sabasaba. And we know what Sabasaba means, and we know where we've come from with that word Sabasaba. And I do remember that I was at Central Police myself, together with a lawyer, responding to some of the issues where protesters were arrested. And with our own eyes, and we saw even in these media houses, Chief Justice Emeritus was tear-gassed inside of a police station, in a Central Police Station. What crime? First, he's a lawyer. Second, he's a human rights activist who had taken medication and bread to some of his friends who had been arrested. And former Chief Justice was tear-gassed inside of a police station. Before we go on, barely a week later, the president's mom, who is elderly, and even if she's not a mom, she's a first lady of this country, a founding first lady. She has been harassed. She's almost in her sunset years. Before we know it, the president has been, literally, they have seen that Kenyans are so focused on the issue of the cost of living, and because they don't have a way out, they have decided to belittle, they have decided to embarrass, they have decided to make mockery of a former head of state who has decided to just be quiet and decent, and this must be called out for what it is. It is a sideshow. Himself, he has said, stop scapegoating, respond to the real issues. So the other day they had started the narrative of his retirement money, his retirement benefits, and I also know that it is also, you are right, because he has already worked for the years he has worked for this country. He's also entitled to his retirement benefits, like every worker, depending on the contract he had with his employer at the time. So, Fred, protesting in Kenya is not bad. We are focusing on the narrative that Kenyans are making a mistake, but we are not focusing on the aggressor. We are not focusing on that Kenyans have died, but who has killed them. Many Kenyans are in hospital. There's no that aspect of accountability, of asking, that we saw in hospitals, and these records are there, that the people in hospitals in Mlolongo and Machakos have bullet wounds. We can also ask ourselves, who are the people who carry guns in Kenya? Then we can work backwards and say that what, and I saw a lawyer yesterday saying, are we clawing back on the rights of this constitution? Are we going back to the dark days? But also, some of us are forced even to sit down and ask, is it because the current people in leadership were against the constitution? Because we know the current head of state was in the no side in 2010. Is it that he doesn't believe in this constitution? Because some of the things we've seen, journalists being beaten inside of the judiciary when they had gone to cover the issue of Babu Owino, those are tactics that ended in the 80s. We thought that the new constitution was the dawn of a new beginning. But now, if Azimio leaders have said that they can't sleep in their homes, if they have to switch off their phones, then it means that you are targeting the messenger instead of attacking the message. Last but not least, let us not make that mistake of saying that maandamano ni ya Azimio. Hii maandamano imekuwa ya Wakenya. Kenyans have owned these maandamanos. Kenyans wamechanuka because even of empowerment of media. Siku hizi every community, even local media is there, so they are very aware. You saw the amount of robustness and the amount of energy. They discussed the finance bill. They have been empowered. Wameingia TikTok. They are making videos. They are asking questions. So don't assume that Kenyans are clueless. Don't assume that Kenyans don't have access to information. The question is, why are you digressing from the real issue, which is the high cost of living and the obnoxious and the absurd taxation?
Meshach, I want us now to move on to the big headline of the day, and Uhuru Kenyatta being forced out of retirement and having to have a sit down with the media to explain himself, because for weeks now I've been entertained to a lot of attacks, criticism from quite a number of leaders accusing the retired president of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, which he says from the interview yesterday, he's done nothing. What do you think of this interview yesterday? Do you think it was actually necessary for the retired president to speak to the media?
Yeah, I think it was very necessary. I think there is something retired President Uhuru Kenyatta have missed for quite some time. He has always wanted to keep quiet a lot. And I think this is something that also probably had put him in this position where he is, because previously, even before he left office, he used to keep quiet a lot. And the Kenya Kwanza Brigade took advantage of that quietness and spread all manner of lies they needed to spread around Mount Kenya and other places. And those are the days when we came to agree with Honorable Thuku and the rest that hatukuli barabara. The barabara they are now crying about here. We agreed and we took it, that hatukuli barabara, because of the quietness of Uhuru. So Uhuru used to come out and say, mimi naendelea na kazi, wao wacha waongee. And that was the loophole. So today, he does not have that job he was doing. And apparently, he thought this side of things would now keep quiet and concentrate on work, but they are not. So every other time Azimio goes out there, they go and call Uhuru Kenyatta is the one who supports this maandamano, is funding it. Every other time Uhuru tries to keep quiet and go to those peacekeeping missions, the government do not want to deal with what is at hand. They are going out to the press to say it is Uhuru who is funding this maandamano. So there was need for Uhuru Kenyatta to come out and actually speak, because it's like Kenyans are going to judge you without listening to you. The other side have prosecuted their case in the public opinion court, and they have gone ahead and said all that, and I think I said somewhere else. If the pattern is that Uhuru Kenyatta is funding this maandamano, the questions we have asked when maandamano was against Uhuru Kenyatta in 2017, who was funding it? But even if you leave that alone, they went ahead to the personal issues like his family, now his mother, which happens to also be First Lady, the First Lady of this country. Even if it was me, I mean, your mother cannot be brought into all this and you just keep quiet as usual. So Uhuru had to come out and actually speak. It went to his son. This is now getting deeper and deeper into family affairs. I don't see any reason why Uhuru should not have come out to now speak and put his case before the people as well. Because I was wondering, if Uhuru Kenyatta is the problem, then what is the role of his mother? Some people in the corner where they sit actually said they are going to do a march to Mama Ngena's home to speak to her, to besiege his son, to stop all this. And then I said, it is okay, as you do that, remember Kenyans who have also been afflicted by the high cost of living, electricity, and all these things, need to do the same to another person's mother, which happens to be William Ruto's mother. Because I feel he has failed in 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need to also besiege his mother to speak to him to reduce the cost of electricity to where Uhuru left it. If that is how to go about it, then so be it. But Fred, there is one thing we have missed as a country on this whole thing. We are missing the human rights perspective, I insist. We cannot equate the life and property to be the same. Because this thing started when the election ended, the Supreme Court ended. Yes, it might have started as a political thing. But deep inside, Kenyans have realized, because when it started, they were fighting so much to make it look like a Luo thing versus government. Then all of a sudden, other Kenyans, including those who voted William Ruto, are feeling like, yes, it is true the cost of living is actually up. Because William Ruto and his team promised that after 100 days, this and this and this will happen. Those have never happened. So those people are asking questions. Then they are still going to the people of Luo Nyanza to beat thoroughly so that it can be seen that it is the war between Luos and government. And then they take it back to the history that you know how Luos are. You know they usually oppose governments. And I think this narrative for the first time should stop. Because the reason why we are saying the government must stop Luo massacre, and they don't like when we say that. Fred, you are in this country, Honorable Thuku were in this country, when Kalenjins demonstrated in Kericho, and they banned machines, the tea harvesting machines. How many of them did you have killed, Mheshimiwa Thuku? Okay. 0. No, let me just finish this, Fred. You're not stopping this at all.
No, because
I am taking it to where it should be. Unless you want to gag me, it's okay.
I'm not gagging.
I'll be allowed to be gagged, but I'm taking it to where it should be, Fred.
Because
when we saw them in Kericho.
My job here is simple, is to guide the conversation.
Yes. Now we are on the mandamano.
No. We're not talking about Uhuru.
Fred.
No, Meshach.
We are talking about Uhuru, yes.
Just a moment.
I am coming to Uhuru.
No,
I have not left Uhuru.
Let's talk
Taking all the
about
time.
Uhuru.
Let me
because
just.
we had an
it is just-
opportunity.
it
We
is-
had an opportunity to talk about
Unless
Rwanda.
you don't want this,
No.
and the world is watching. It's
Meshach,
okay.
Meshach,
I know.
Bear with me. Bear with me. And
I
I'll
am
give you an
bearing with
opportunity.
you, but I must finish this sentence.
I'll give you that
In
opportunity.
Kericho, Mali was
Meshach,
destroyed.
allow me to move on.
No bullet hit
Allow me
any
to
single
move on.
person. When they attacked
Honorable-
the Northlands
Honorable
farm,
Tuku,
wait,
Honorable Tuku.
I am coming back to Uhuru.
No,
North, Fred,
No,
were you
he
here
has
when
already
Northlands
attacked.
farm was attacked? How many people were killed by a bullet here in
You want to take all
Ruiru?
the
The
time.
police went there 2
Meshach.
days after.
No.
Why? Because Luos were not attacking Northlands
okay,
farm.
Meshach, we have
But
to move on
in
now. Honorable
Kisumu,
Tuku.
Nyalenda, we
No,
see
the
people
issue now-
beaten inside their house.
No.
We must say this, the world must hear
I've
this.
become wild.
You might want to gag me or not call me again to this show, but this must be said.
Honorable
Thank you.
Tuku,
Yes, sir.
Honorable Tuku, the issue about having the former president come out in public like this, this is also political to some extent.
Yes.
It can be counterproductive even to the current regime. Yet it's the same administration that has pushed this man to come out and speak to the public like this. Was it really necessary to push him to this? Is this the kind of result that probably you wished for, that he comes out and explains himself?
Thank you very much, friend. Now you can just see with your own eyes the kind of trouble the government is facing outside there. Yeah, you have just tasted.
Let's just move on.
Yeah, we are moving on.
We'll give Meshach
my
an
friend.
opportunity to
He's my friend.
talk about
Yeah.
other issues.
So the issue is this, friend. You know, when we talk about the former president, and to a certain extent, even already, we all regard as our mother, Mama Ngina. You know, we've been brought up to greatly respect not only her because she's our first lady, but all women in our country, her age, we are supposed to respect them. And you know, friends, the way I see all these issues, you know, in a war, and we have been like basically in a war, war is very bad. And when a war starts, even in countries that have been destroyed by a war, people start a war, but after some time, they realize that this war have taken its own life. You see, that's the absurdity and the sadness of any war. So, the war that we have had here have, you know, those are now the, you know, the damages of the war we have had as a country. And the things that the former president is saying, I wish he was saying them when he was still in power. That yes, power is fleeting. But all said and done, you know, we have a branch called intelligence department in this country. And it collects intelligence of national security and such matters. So, if they think that there is a certain danger posed from this angle, they will say it as it is. The issue now is, friend, we are where we are. What's the cure? And the cure, and I liked something the head of state, the former head of state did. He said publicly, he's not supporting the Mandamano. Immediately, the Mandamano guys called the Mandamano off. So, let us now build from there, right? Because, you know, the bad thing that has been happening is that we have had an opposition bent on using the figure of the former president, right? And to our greatest disadvantage, the former president has been coming out and saying, that person is my friend.
He still said it again.
Yes,
I'm a supporter
yes,
of the Azimio coalition.
yes, yes.
I campaigned for Raila.
Yes.
Unless something major happens, I support that coalition.
Now, that is where we differ completely. I differ completely.
It is his political right.
Exactly. But you see, President Moi had his political right. Mzee Kibaki had his political right.
The question was, you've said that he made some statements that appear to have actually corrected the wrongs that you accused him of. That probably this is the kind of action you wanted for him to come out, speak to the media, and set the record straight on a number of things. Do you think that this is actually the solution you needed?
It's a step in the right direction, if I may say. But we will still continue appealing to him. You know, he cannot be coming out. He's a statesman. He's our leader. You know, at one point, we vigorously campaigned for him, so we don't hate him. But he needs to fully disassociate himself from people who are saying they want to overthrow the government. Because look, my brother, allow me.
Briefly, because we need to go on a break.
But why should we allow you? You are misleading us.
No, I'm not.
What do you mean?
You will have your moment.
One
You are
second,
also
you'll
misleading
also
us,
get a
and
chance.
we are not interjecting.
Okay.
So the issue is, we need, when President Uhuru was vying against Mzee Moi Kibaki, Mzee Moi was backing Uhuru. But when they were defeated, Mzee Moi said, let's embrace the president. That is what we need to hear from President Uhuru, because he is a statesman. Mm-hmm. We need to hear him saying, fine, I supported Raila, we failed. Let's now embrace our president so that he takes the nation forward.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, we'll continue this discussion. Of course,
There's a
Minor.
bit of hypocrisy in that statement.
No.
Honorable Thuku's earlier statement was, when we were going to election, they would have wished that Uhuru does not take a stand.
Of course.
But here he's giving a good example of Moi taking a stand.
Yeah.
Now, where is he? I mean, we can't be so hypocritical. We can't be so hypocritical.
Because you're here to comment on this issue, I'll give you that opportunity.
Yeah.
We're just about to get some feedback from Flora Limuki. I know it is a very emotive discussion. President Uhuru Kenyatta has been criticized, called names, and accused of so many things. And yesterday he got the opportunity to come out and actually try and set the record straight. Was he successful? Is this the kind of result that the Kenya Kwanza administration were hoping for? And is he now in the right light with them? Let's now get the feedback from Flora, then we come back and get Wanja Minor's opinion on this issue.
Well, it's a heated discussion over there, and let me just look at some of the trends on social media. Of course, we have Baba there concerning the Mandamanos, tomorrow's protest that were to happen, and also 72% Kenyans are trending because of the Kenyans who believe that the 72% of Kenyans who believe that the country is not heading in the right direction. Also, Twitter logo they are trending because of the change of the Twitter logo from the famous bird to the X. And as I look at some of the trends here, fellow Kenyan says 72 of Kenyans who think are heading to the wrong direction are the real Kenyans. The other 28% are politicians and the diaspora who technically speaking are not Kenyans. I saw quite an interesting comment here by the former running mate for Roots Party leader Wajakoya, that is Justina Wamai. I'm just trying to get it. Just a moment. Justina Wamai. All right, got it. And she says 72% of Kenyans feel the country is moving in the wrong direction. How can the country move in the right direction when during elections we fail to reconcile that once a candidate wins an election, they have a legislative role positively influencing food, health, housing, education, economic, environmental, etc. policies. I meet people who tell me sisi tulikuwa campaigns, and true, they can talk to the part, but their eyes say that their vision and hope died with him. What advice would you give a close ally of Mhesh, as she refers to David Mwenje, who is currently in power and doesn't know them? Of course, those are some of the views by Kenyans concerning the recent conversation on the high cost of living. Continue streaming in your feedback. And just one more here before we take it back to Fred. The moment President Uhuru Kenyatta mentioned President Ruto as his president, Raila Odinga knew he was in such, he had to make instant U-turn, tactically postpone the Wednesday maandamano. Ruto is busy, Uhuru should look for Ruto. And hashtag Jalas there, 72% of Kenyans, and of course, Pauline Njoroge is trending as well, following her being set free after being released yesterday. That is just some of the comments that we have from Twitter, but of course, keep interacting with us. Hashtag Morning Cafe at TV47 News on Twitter, at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. We'll be sampling some of your feedback as the show moves on. Fred?
Thank you, Flora, for that feedback. And we continue discussing this top story today. Uhuru, my problem with Ruto, that's the main headline on the Daily Nation today. It's also the front page of the Standard and the front page of other major dailies in the country. It is the biggest talking point today. Uhuru Kenyatta came out yesterday talking to the media and setting the record straight on a number of issues. Among those issues, he said, and this is with regard to whether or not he has had any discussion or is willing to have any discussion with his successor, William Ruto. And he said, Wanja, he said, I cannot invite myself to State House. I have not been called. But if I am called, I will definitely offer advice.
Certainly, ever so conciliatory, ever so calm, ever so welcoming, and it's therefore not surprising that former President Uhuru Kenyatta has been invited to DRC Congo. He was part of the critical team that mediated a long-standing conflict in Tigray region in Ethiopia. Really, I could even describe him as a prince of peace. It is therefore not even surprising that his own political party chose a dove to be the logo of the party. So you had asked the question, is it counterproductive for him to come out? He has been pushed to the very end. What do you think? If people are first sponsoring coups in your own political party, he has a right to be a member of a political party. Before you know it, they are attacking your elderly mother. Before you know it, they are endangering your children. Your children. Certainly, anybody else could come out. Even if he's not a former president, he'll come out as a parent, he'll come out as a child. And I think we have become so harsh to him that we fail to see the humanity and the humanness and the humanness in him. But it's an international TV actually, because I'm sure even people in diaspora are watching. But I could also go on and say that there's a guy called Cuomo who was a governor in New York. He's from an Italian family, but they are popular in New York. He said that the danger of politicians is that they campaign in poetry, but they govern in prose. The organizing principle behind Kenya Kwanza election campaigns, and that's why they keep taking us back to the campaigns as if we don't know that their first birthday is next month. Their promise was, we shall lower the cost of living to keka Biblia chini. So what is the problem now? Is that since they put the Biblia chini, the cost of living is going higher and higher, and because they don't seem to have a formula, they have started digressing. And we also saw the arrest of Pauline, who is very popular online. Why? Because it was countering the hashtag of maandamano so that we can get away from the attention on the real issue.
Okay.
And for us who are Kenyans, we are saying, let us remain on the real issue. But because I also believe that sometimes it's also important to call a spade a spade. There's something that our friend had tried to say. And I think that point must be emphasized, even for people who are not from that community, that it is a pattern that we saw that is so unfortunate, that we saw tear gassing of children, that we saw people being gotten out of their home, being beaten. and indeed it was a Luo massacre, and the Azimio coalition described it as a genocide.
Kindly allow me to stop
my
you
issue is
because this platform is being watched by so many people.
Yes.
And we run the risk of inflaming emotions.
Yes.
And that's why, as the moderator in this discussion, I will not go there.
But what is the problem with emotions?
I will not go.
Even emotions are good because the Luo massacre came out of maandamano.
Wanja, allow me to proceed with the discussion as it was. Because, and I urged you, my panelists, let's focus on this gentleman, Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
He is on the front pages of our dailies today. Yes. That is a discussion I want us to have. Yes. He has said that if at all is called upon, if at all the president calls him, he is willing to offer advice to the president. And probably let's think about that for a moment. These two gentlemen, President Uhuru Kenyatta, President William Ruto, are the only two out of 5 gentlemen who've actually occupied that position. In Kenya, the only person who may understand William Ruto or the position of the presidency, it is only Uhuru Kenyatta, who has actually been in that position for 10 years. Correct. Yes? For the former president to say that he is willing, if called upon, to offer advice, it would appear like he's extending an olive branch and saying, fine, you're the president, I cannot invite myself to your space. You call me, and I will come and I'll offer advice. Don't you think, Meshach, that would open up a different front altogether, that probably the discussion would change completely, and it would take only that, a call from the president, William Ruto, to his predecessor?
Fred, I think I have a very heavy heart because I feel like you have been gagged, and so you're trying to gag everyone else. And the meaning of this show is simply diminishing for me. Because if Kenyans are back to that era where nobody could say things the way they are happening, then it is very unfortunate. I think Uhuru was a gentleman from the beginning because he supported Raila against his deputy. And when they were not satisfied, because I don't know the things Uhuru knows, and I don't know the things Raila knows, they felt and believed that they did not lose elections. But Uhuru still told Kenyans before the international media that I will hand over the power. And he actually went to Kasarani and handed over the power. And we both saw internationally when he was being diminished by the now current deputy president and a few other leaders who spoke in that podium. And he was there. He stayed the whole of it and handed over the power as the Constitution demands. And there were nothing other than that. So for me, that is a gentleman, because he would have probably even said, I am not appearing in that podium, and let them go on with their power and all that. So from there, the president who took over needed to pick the mantle. We cannot go back to Uhuru to be the one to initiate everything. No. There is now a president. That president is the one who Uhuru said in his interview, I visited Moi several times. I visited Kibaki before he passed on. I needed their opinion. I needed their advice. I have not been visited by the current president or invite me to seek my opinion on anything. What do you people want from Uhuru again? I mean, he is there as a father figure. He has been in that seat, like you have said, for 10 years, and the only one for now. If the current man in power feels that he knows all, then that is it. Uhuru cannot invite himself to the State House to start advising unsolicited advice. But if the current man is wise enough to know that there are elder people who have passed through where I am and I need their advice, it is them to summon Uhuru or invite Uhuru for coffee at State House and say, my brother, I need your advice on this. And that is purely what Uhuru said. Mm-hmm. He is not opening any conversation. He is just saying, I am ready to give my advice because I love my country and I need unity. But I will not do it unsolicited. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yet we've seen a lot of reaction from some of the leaders within the Kenya Kwanza coalition in reaction to former President Uhuru Kenyatta's interview yesterday. And they've been described as hardliners. They do not see even after that assertion that he would be willing to offer advice to the current president. They do not see what kind of advice the current president would benefit from the former president. Don't you think that some of these hardliners are actually the problem? That probably President Ruto would benefit from a tete-a-tete with his predecessor, but those people around him would not allow it, and hence the kind of crisis we find ourselves in.
Friend, you know, I wouldn't want to say about this hard-line position. You know, the thing is, friend,
it is part of the problem. The hardline stances that people have.
The president only talked yesterday. But you see, friend, we came from very turbulent waters. And truth be said, most of us who were supporting President William Ruto during the campaigns, we were aghast at the type of treatment he was receiving from the former president. Yet, we had been all supporters of the former president, and we know the role the current president played in the election of the former president. But all said and done, the current president, President William Ruto, is a good man and a good gentleman. Look, immediately he put the Bible down. He appointed his predecessor to be a peacemaker in the tribal sports around the world. He said, former president, we respect him, he will be representing the country. Now, friend, I want to invite you to imagine, despite all that, our former president, a gentleman I respect very much, he went to Kisumu, he said, I still support this man. Look, it is, but you see now we are addressing the issue of why he may not have been invited, you know, because the man he was saying he's supporting, you know, he has spent 90% of his political life castigating. And we all agreed with him. And this is a man, at the time he was saying he's supporting him, who was saying he doesn't believe in the presidency of President William Ruto. What we are saying is, friend, and that is why maybe that is what you are calling hardline, we are saying there must be an end to this perennial impunity. That we go to elections, you lose, you start chaos, you are invited to government. That we have said categorically, and if that is hardline, I can say it from where I'm seated. I'm not supporting.
Are you suggesting that Uhuru Kenyatta would be interested in having a share of this government?
No, you see.
Because we are talking about Uhuru Kenyatta vis-a-vis William Ruto, not Raila Odinga.
Yes, look, no, they are intertwined. And what we are saying, Fred, is we are saying the former president, and I've said this severally during this show, I've said it in the past, I have no problem with the former president, but we are saying he should be the big brother. No. He should not take sides, and it is not too late. He should not take sides. And we have a very good president, a very magnanimous gentleman, because I'm 100% sure the president would have no problem having constructive engagement with him. Lastly, Fred, with your permission.
I'll give you. I want to give all of you now an opportunity to say your final words.
You will give me, but just slightly, because I want to support you. This is a national TV. Let's be very, very careful. And I want to thank you because some stations, not only in Kenya, but even around the world, are known to have inflamed tensions, to have inflamed fights because of careless statements from panelists.
Okay, thank you. Lady and gentlemen, I now want to ask you to give your final comments. We'll be getting our T47 editorial comment in a short while, but before that, as we wrap up this discussion, let's start with the lady.
Mine really is just to say that Kenya is our country. We found it, we are going to get old, and we shall leave Kenya, and we shall continue. However, we know that political leaders wield a lot of power, and especially elected leaders. But elected leaders must always embrace the fact that theirs is donated power from the people, and it is incumbent upon them to always speak the language of the people. If the finance bill was taken to the people of Chinga, they would have said a resounding no, but the Mheshimiwa said a resounding yes. On the issue of receiving advice, giving advice, the current obsession, using former President Uhuru as a scapegoat. Mine is just to say that even when you are coming to a table of equity, even when you are coming to a table of discussion and dialogue, you must come with decency, you must come with clean hands, you can't come with that kind of grandstanding and that kind of contempt. Certainly they have called him a big brother, but you don't treat your big brother in a way that mocks his children, in a way that treats his mom badly. But most importantly, it is important for Kenya Kwanza to appreciate that we have a constitution. We have seen them muzzling political voices that are voices of dissent, and they can't embrace political pluralism. We have seen Kenya almost becoming a police state. We have seen a lot of attack on media. We want to know if we are regressing or if we are progressing. The constitution is 13 years old, if not 14, if it can only get better. Last but not least, let us not forget the real issue from the mouth of the Mwananchi, who was interviewed by all these pollsters, that their main issue is the cost of food and the cost of living and the broken campaign promises.
Thank you, Wanja Maina. Mesha Kodede?
What would you want me to talk about?
It's your choice.
I mean, we have completely been gagged, so I don't even know what exactly I should say and what TV47 do not want me to say. So just direct me on what I should say, and then I will repeat it.
Then we will skip you and give Honorable Kiruga Thuku an opportunity to make your final comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, friend. No, we can't. No, friend, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us here. And as much as some people may want to paint a grim picture, I want to confirm from where I sit, we have a government in place, because I'm part of that government, that is very keen on addressing the challenges facing Kenyans. You have seen our president visiting various areas of our country, including Homa Bay, including Taita, including Kisii, including Murang'a. And our president is very emphatic, and he has kept reminding all of us who have been given leadership positions on his party that we must work for Wananchi. So, my dear Kenyans, my dear brothers and sisters, this government have just been in power for just 9 few months. God willing, things will work for a better country. Let us not burn our country. You know, we may try to burn this country, but we will all burn in it if this country burns. So let's uphold peace. Let's support one another.
Okay.
There is nothing like any group being targeted, my brother. The government will work for all regions of this country. And that is why you have even seen our president being accommodative to even members of the opposition who want to work for their people and want the help of the government.
Okay.
So let us take care. Let us not just make allegations upon allegations that may inflame tensions in this country. The government means well for its people, and I'm saying this with authority because I'm part of this.
Thank you, Honorable Kiruga Thuku, MCA Chinga Ward, Wanja Maina National Chairperson, Jubilee Party, PWD's League, and Mesha Kodede, Chairperson, Volunteer Involving Organization Society of Kenya. Our panel this morning, swear. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. For now, let's get some feedback from my colleague, Flora, and after that, we'll have the editorial commentary by TV47.
Well, let's have a look at some of the Facebook feedback here. Kipkoech Langat says sharing of government positions with the opposition team can erode democratic gains in the country. As Wilfred Odanga says, competition is at the bottom. The people at the top are collaborating. Tribal hatred delivers the agenda for tribeless collaborators. And someone else here says, Peter Mungai, he shouldn't, that is speaking of president, those two were defeated and they should instead be planning better for 2027, lest they'll say Kimebu again. Ruto should concentrate in fulfilling his government's manifesto and bettering the life of Kenyans. No talks, if at all. They wanted to talk. They shouldn't have resided to violent demonstrations. Let's have another look at the comment. Why are elected leaders afraid of the very people who gave them power? They should instead uplift the lives of ordinary Kenyans so that they can stop seeing us as thieves. And finally, Manu says, why should they talk? Is talking to Raila and Uhuru reducing the cost of living? President just to put some temporary measures that will reduce the cost of some commodities as they look for permanent or long-term solutions for Kenyans. That is some of the feedback that we have. But right now, let's have a look at the editorial comment of the day.
Let's now get the editorial commentary by TV47. As Kenya stands at a crossroads in its history, it is time for its leaders to rise above personal differences and prioritize the nation's well-being. Kenya witnessed significant growth under the leadership of retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, and now his successor William Ruto has the opportunity to take us to even greater heights of development. However, recent political tensions threaten to derail the progress and stability that Kenyans have worked so hard to achieve. This editorial commentary urges these two eminent leaders to set aside their differences and work together for the greater good of Kenya. For decades, Kenyans have displayed a spirit of togetherness in times of crisis. Now, the current political discord risks undermining these very foundations that have made Kenya a shining example in Africa. Both Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto possess unique strengths and perspectives, which continue to play a critical and crucial role in shaping Kenya's trajectory. It is essential to recognize and honor their individual contributions. Now, rivalries and conflicts in politics are not uncommon, but should never supersede the welfare of the nation. As respected leaders, both Kenyatta and Ruto have a responsibility to prioritize the interests of the people above personal ambitions and grievances. A united front is even more critical that face Kenya today. Issues such as economic disparities, climate change, healthcare, and education demand immediate attention and effective solutions. Moreover, by reconciling and working together, Ruto and Kenyatta can set a powerful example for the nation. The impact of such a show of unity would reverberate throughout Kenya, inspiring citizens to put aside their differences and work towards a common purpose. It would strengthen the social fabric and promote a sense of national identity that is integral to the country's growth and prosperity. As the only surviving Kenyan presidents, Uhuru Kenyatta and